You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
Here we are at Queenhithe, the only surviving section of the City of London's ancient riverfront, and a glimpse of how it might have looked to those who walked beside it more than 1,000 years ago. Attached to the wall, you may be able to see a plaque, erected in 1986, to commemorate the 1100th anniversary of King Alfred's resettlement of the Roman city of London. It is not entirely accurate. Alfred certainly took possession of the city in that period, but the archaeology indicates that people have been drifting back inside the walls for at least a generation before Alfred's time. Nor was Alfred the sole authority here. The original name of this place was Ethelred's Hithe, with Hythe being the Old English word for port. Ethelred was the Mercian prince who, apparently with Alfred's backing, ruled here towards the end of the 9th century. There are other Hythes in the vicinity. Timber Hythe, immediately to the west, is now High Timber Street, a road that disappears into a strip-lit underpass. Fish Hythe is buried beneath Broken Wharf and Trigg Lane. But it's Queenhithe and neighbouring Bull Wharf to the east, which is the site of the buildings to your left if you're looking at the river, that have produced some of the most extraordinary archaeology from early medieval London ever to be excavated. Documents recording the transfer of land at the end of the 9th century show that this part of London was known as a trading shore, ripa emptoralis in Latin, and that the land was owned by the bishops of Worcester and Canterbury, both of whom had the right to moor their boats in this neighbourhood and to profit from the trade conducted here. Evidence of that trade, and the people who passed through, is provided by substantial quantities of imported goods from continental Europe and Scandinavia. In fact, more Viking-era artefacts of Scandinavian manufacture have been found here than anywhere else in Britain outside York. The wealth that flowed into London over the next 100 years is demonstrated by the remains of a late 10th century building, massive fragments of which were used to shore up the embankments here. It was a huge triple-tiered hall that once rose to a height of more than 35 feet, with arcades, pillars and great rounded arches. Its roof was tiled with wooden shingles, and it dwarfed the normal single-storey dwellings of the time. It's tempting to connect it with the bishops who once owned land here, a grand church or bishop's palace perhaps, or else the dwelling of a great lord or wealthy merchant. Remains of this building were used in the construction of an evolving waterfront of timber piles and revetments, walkways and gangplanks that, as time wore on, became a substantial wooden embankment for the mooring of boats and for enabling access to and from the city. Some of the other timbers that were used to construct the harbour side were maritime salvage, wood stripped from the hulls of 10th century ships that included a massive 60-footer from the Low Countries and fragments that seemed to have come from Scandinavian ships. Further evidence of the far-flung nature of the trade that arrived here. But there were other ways that ships like these might arrive on the Thames. In 895, the London garrison pursued a Viking raiding fleet up the River Lee to Hertford. When Alfred arrived there with reinforcements, the Viking army fled overland, and the triumphant Londoners seized their ships. According to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, those they could not take away they broke up, and those that were serviceable brought into London. So it's just possible that parts of London's old timber embankments were constructed with the salvaged timbers of captured Viking ships.